everyone thinks of when
Yep.
they probably heard this question. And I understand that thought and sentiment, but just going to what you were saying, just doesn't seem likely at this point that unless Trey Lance is the absolute month before the season, week one starter, that they would ship off Jimmy, because it just doesn't seem like. I don't even think they would get a good offer. I know earlier we said a first or a second, but I think they would be lucky to get a third at this rate, quite frankly. So when I look up and down this roster, you pointed this out perfectly. I think before all the injuries happened, the guy I would be saying would be Raheem Mostert, and that's for a few reasons. It's because of what you said just now with Matt Breida, which is that he has a year left on his contract. I think you save about $3 million if you offload him before week one of the season. So yeah, you can absolutely find a way to save a little money. And if you have a lot of confidence in both Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell and Wayne Gallman, right, and you have this great running back room, you can be like, oh, okay, we can go and get a 5th or a 4th round pick for a guy like Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
And that's where I think things could get really interesting if they do get that kind of offer. But at the same time, with all the injuries that we've seen, it makes it so tough to actually execute that. So I think if anything, and I said before week one of the season for this question, this could be something that could pop up week 6, week 7, week 8 of the season, right? To where they have a lot of confidence in what they've seen from Trey Sermon, and Jeff Wilson Jr. is back, and they're comfortable with their running room, but they get that kind of offer that we saw with Matt Breida, that same sort of thing, to where it's like, man, we're only getting this guy for 8 more games. I mean, a 4th round pick, that is really worth it considering all the 49ers had to give up. I mean, they're going to have to find some way to recoup any draft capital at some point. So that could certainly be a way of going about it.
Yeah, I'd be so sad if we moved on from Raheem Mostert. He is definitely one of my favorites. But, I get the concept. I saw a comment that came in, who wants to take on that contract? And I think it's a fair question of, does anyone else see the same value in Mostert that we do? Within our offense, he's a home run hitter. Within our offense, he may not play as many snaps as you'd like to see him play, but the value to each one of those snaps is enormous. And so I think that Kyle has a tendency to overpay for some guys that have that increased value on a smaller set of plays. Juice is a perfect example where he's totally willing to overpay for the percentage of plays that Juice actually is in there. But when he's in there, the value he creates, the opportunities he creates is so immense that I think Kyle sees it as the appropriate value, even though most of us would say, well, you're overpaying for a fullback that you don't use in 50% of your snaps.
So, yeah, no, and I think that's I think when we think about all these things, we have to keep value in perspective, and
that's right.
And how other teams value players versus how your own team values players. So I think given the right situation, I could definitely see the Raheem Mostert trade